Hey everybody, welcome back to the Comic Wall. It's your girl, the Outcast, John. I did something different with my hair, so hope you guys recognize me. Anyway, let's talk about issue 39 of Thief of Thieves. And guys, what an issue. This one really built up Conrad Paulson in a way that his character you wouldn't think his character could be, if that makes sense, you know? And so let me just kind of recap what happened leading up to this issue. So Conrad Paulson, aka Redman, the greatest thief in the world, was hired by the Zubov brothers, which are Maxim and Victor Zubov, billionaire oligarchs, oligarchs, excuse me, the sixth and seventh richest men in the world, and they hired him to steal a cyber weapon called Gold Rush, which the single purpose of it is to crash the U.S. stock market, and so it was being held in a Russian facility, and so these guys hired Fausto Delgado, the Spaniard, Sally Pike, the Brit, and Conrad Paulson, aka Redman, the American. And so they hired these people in order to steal this weapon and take it back for them. At the same time, they were also running some kind of contest between these three thieves in order to truly see who was the greatest thief in the world. And so when they went on this heist to take Gold Rush, it went bad. And I know Delgado, the Spaniard, was killed. Sally was we don't really know what happened to her. It's kind of assumed that she escaped, and Conrad was assumed to have been killed as well. But then when issue 38 came in almost a year and a half later, I mean, issue 37 came out late 2016, and then they took a break for a minute in order to bring in a new writer, which is now Brett Lewis. And so in issue 38, we find out that Conrad wasn't really killed. He was actually taken and apparently sold to a Russian prison. And so we see him there for almost 42 weeks, living life there. And it was bad for him. He made some friends, all the while, trying to survive. While on the outside, Celia and his son Augustus at first they were trying to grieve his death, but then when they found out he was alive, when he sent them a letter, they tried to put everything they could into rescuing him. But at the end of the issue, we see his ex-wife Aubrey, I forget what it is. She sends him a letter on the request of Celia in order to kind of let him know that they were working on it. But the letter itself was kind of cold and distant, and so at that moment when he was reading the letter, he kind of snaps. He attacks the guards leading up to him being thrown off the roof of the prison and ultimately being killed, or so we thought. And so dropping now in this issue on week 43, we see Conrad being tossed into a stack of bodies, but then as the guards are disposing of him, we see Celia off in the tree line watching them through a rifle. And so we cut away from there to go back to week 33, which was 2 months earlier, in which Audrey is reading the letter that Conrad sent them, and turns out this letter is a kite, as Celia calls it, a coded letter. And Audrey obviously knows what this is, and turns out they want to do a I guess a scam or some kind of procedure that Conrad and Audrey have done before, in which it's a drug that would kill Conrad, but only kill him long enough for whoever's in front of him to think he's dead. And then whoever he's with can resuscitate him. And so Audrey makes some calls and gets back to Celia on week 35, in which she holds up a letter with a lipstick kiss on it and another envelope with 2 antidotes. And so Audrey explains that the first antidote is to kind of wake him up, to jumpstart him, and to force him into a very high functional state, body and brain up to peak levels. But the second one is to kind of, well, as she says, save his life in order to keep him from burning everything up. So, kind of just to stop that that process going on. And so Celia, thanks Audrey and says, if there was another way, I'm sorry. But Audrey's, she's done with Conrad. And so she's like, he's all yours, Celia. Good luck. So now back to week 43 when Conrad wakes up, essentially. He's walking through the woods to Celia in this armored van, I guess. And he's in pretty bad shape, and so Celia takes him in and is tending to him, and yeah, he's in pretty bad shape. He's saying like, I'm out, I'm done. I just want a normal life. I want back the things I lost and all the things I never had. And so the next time we see him in a hospital bed in his house, and on week 45, we find out just how badly this has affected Conrad, because Celia walks into his room and finds he's not there, only to see that he's curled up in a fetal position under his bed, and he's just saying, I don't want to talk about it. And so, yeah, this is pretty fucked up. I mean, with the fact that Conrad is, supposedly the greatest thief in the world, seeing how this has affected him, it's pretty bad to see. It's like seeing Superman at his weakest, And so now at week 46, we see that Celia is she's out for blood. She wants to murder everyone who was involved in the supposed killing of Conrad. And so this involves the Zubovs, Sally, who is nowhere to be found and is still assumed as alive, and the rest of Conrad's ex-crew. And so Conrad doesn't want any of this. Celia is focused on taking out the Zubovs with their money and everything, but Conrad explains that the money is nothing to the Zubovs. I mean, the prize money for their little competition that Conrad was part of was like $100 million, a small one of $100 million. But obviously they had that much money to spend, and they have enough of it as it is. They're billionaires, So Conrad's just terrified. He doesn't want to go into this anymore. He says, I can't have anyone else hurt. I have to keep everyone safe. But Celia, she's still hounding him on this. And so he kind of goes into this little fit of rage. He's like, what is this? You're counting the weeks of my hell? Like Conrad's defeat and humiliation? And Celia's being a bit of a bitch here, like he's gone through a lot, and I know, like, he's gone through a lot, and I know Celia and everyone else has gone through a lot too, but just the fact that, he was in a place where he didn't think he was going to be able to get out, at least I think, and he lost some of the only friends he made in there, and so he's been through some shit, so, you can't really blame him for acting like this. But ultimately this ends up pushing Celia away, and leading up to week 47, we see that Augustus has finally gotten to visit his father. And so he's talking with his father, and Conrad's saying, like, you don't want to be part of my world. And ultimately Conrad was kind of behind keeping Augustus out of this whole, like, spring situation. Anyway, Augustus really wanted to be part of this. He's sure he doesn't want to be part of his dad's world, but he wants to be part of it in a way that helps people, that helps the ones he loves. And so he says he wants to be part of something bigger. And it's kind of hard not to be part of Conrad's world, because he's Augustus is saying how like you've killed people in front of me, you've done all these things in front of me. Like there's no way that I'm gonna be able to walk away from this, you know. And so Conrad kind of takes a long look at his son and says, "The killing is over. I promise." Now at week 48, we see that Conrad is starting to warm up to Celia's way of thinking, but he's still up to the no killing aspect of it. He wants to be done with it, and so he's saying that they were my crew, it's my history, let me get my strength back, but it'll be my problem. He doesn't want Celia to be part of it at all. Or rather, he doesn't want to go the way Celia is going, you know? And so now we're at week 50, and Conrad's rehabilitating pretty fast. We see him here working out, and we see Celia off to the side. We see Augustus lifting weights. And funny thing, we actually see on his shirt, it's the same logo as on the Thief of Thieves logo, and I just thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, we see Conrad is healing up pretty nicely. He's bouncing back in a way that, you know, I almost thought was going to be impossible, but he's doing pretty good for himself, to be honest. Now we see him settling with the old crew, and we see him talking to Grandin, one of his closer friends, and he's kind of talking to him, saying like catching up on what happened since that last heist. And so pretty much Conrad is going to him to thank him for keeping his son out of this whole spring deal going on, and also to kind of tell him and to kind of spread the word out to the rest of the crew that Conrad, Celia, and the rest of them, they're done. They're done, and it's all like cauterized, as Grandin says. And now we jump to week 52, where he's talking with Beth, which is she's the ex-special agent from the FBI who kind of had a bit of a hard-on for him. I mean, she was obsessed with bringing him in, the greatest thief ever, Redmond. But, you know, she always kept hitting a brick wall. She kept running out of luck, and she just screwed herself over. And so now we see her that she's pretty much just a drunk and washed-out agent now, you know? And so she and Conrad are talking about, you know, just the things that ruined them, the addiction, if you will. And as they're talking, we see how Conrad was kind of brought back to life. We see how he was tossed with the bodies, and then there's this drone that flies over him and fires the antidote into his chest, which ultimately resuscitates him and helps him to escape undetected. And as he comes back into the conversation, he passes back a sympathy card. I forgot the word for it, and says, if you won't take my card, at least let me return yours. There's only one kind of addict. And we see that turns out Beth had sent back a sympathy card. Well, yeah, a sympathy card to Conrad's supposed funeral, and we find out that, you know, she's still addicted in some way to bringing him in. Now we see Conrad has made it back to his house, and he's talking with Celia, saying that 100 million is nothing to the Zubovs. It's lunch money. I want them to feel it. I'm gonna knock their milk off their tray. And Celia's like, but you said. And he said, that was then. This is now. And now we're starting back to week 1 in this final story arc. And I'm excited. I can't wait to see how Brett Lewis is gonna wrap up this series, because I really enjoyed it. I'm usually not a big fan of, like, you know, big thief or like Mission Impossible style stories, but this one really caught my attention, and I was actually lucky enough to get a letter printed in this issue, and I was pretty happy about this, just because the fact that, you know, it's the last story arc. I didn't know if I'd be able to get a letter in before the series ended, but I was lucky enough to get one in. So I start with, "Hello, Thieves." Okay, that sounded mean, but I didn't know what else to call y'all. When I caught up with this series, I thought it was completely over. So I didn't put too much effort reading the letters, until I noticed y'all mentioning coming back in 2018, which I meant 2017. but where are y'all? And yeah, like we went through the whole year of 2017 with nothing. And so I was excited to hear this series was coming back, but only for one more arc. And with Conrad dead, I had assumed that Conrad was dead because Jon Moisan, the editor, you dirty liar, had said that he was dead in the letters of last issue. And so I continue with, he was my husband for this series. I was falling in love with this guy. Oh well, I can't wait to see where you take this series. Hopefully I get in at least one letters page before the end. Blah blah blah. And then Jon Moisan, the editor, responds with, "Welcome to the Thief of Thieves letters page, Andy. Glad to have you on board, even if it is the end. And at least we didn't kill your husband for this series. And no love for Augustus. Shame on you. Hey, okay, I saw in this issue, Augustus looks pretty good, but I'm not digging the long hair, to be honest. It's just, I don't know. There's certain angles of his face where he looks kind of cute, but I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked it. And if you did, drop a like, show the love, hit that subscribe button to get more of my videos, ring the bell to get notifications when I post new videos, so that way you guys stay updated and don't miss out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.